the higher levels of fear, the higher the reward or the magic that you experience. And at least that's what I found. And the more you face your fear and do it anyway, the more fulfilling your life becomes.
Sergio Navarretta, award-winning film director. Welcome to the show.
Thank you, Sarah. And I love that you said it correctly. You pronounced it like perfectly.
I tried. I was like, I got to get this right. It's like, I know how to say it, but will my mouth make it happen? Need the coffee, lots of coffee. So.
Love it. Well, I brought my espresso in the cup that I made this cup. Pretty cool, eh?
Oh, I love that. Oh man, that'd be great for some Turkish coffee or some Lebanese coffee. Oh man,
Yeah, well, yeah,
nice.
my background's Italian, so I espresso is my go-to. I don't eat breakfast, but I do drink espresso.
That's awesome. Well, the best coffee still to this day that I've ever had is always when I'm in Italy. They're doing some coffee magic over there that
Well,
nobody
yeah.
else can quite perfect. I don't know.
It's a sacred art and it's like a religion to them. Especially where I'm from in the south, near Naples, it's
Oh, yeah.
it brings people together. It's part of a ceremonial routine during the day and that's where I got my first ulcer when I was 19 because of like 8 espressos a day. But it's so important that people come together and have conversations.
It is absolutely. And you just won a Leo award. Congratulations.
Thank you. I was actually going to bring it and put it in the background somewhere, but it's so heavy. It's like I would need, a
Okay.
crew to bring it down. But
Like
yeah, it was
exercise with it, right? You could like, lift and then switch hands and then do this and yeah.
yeah, it was pretty funny trying to get it to through customs. Because I shoved it in the suitcase. I never do a check bag. It's always carry on.
Same.
Um, so I'm looking at the X-ray and I'm like, here we go. And you see this head inside, the suitcase, and of course I get flagged, and it's like, oh God, here we go. So it's like, what's this? And I think it's obvious, there's a whole plaque on it. It says what it is. And so anyways, we had a laugh and then I was on my way. But yeah, what an honor. I was surprised. And it was just good to be back in my second home in LA and, sunny state. It was great.
Yeah. Well, I'm so excited that you're on the show, and we are going to talk today about anxiety and nerves when it comes to art and creativity. And I think this is such an important topic, and it's something that impacts me every day. I will just say for all of my audience that's watching, I get nervous before every show that I do, even if I'm on with someone I've known for years. There are nerves and anxiety about being in front of the camera. For me, I am more comfortable behind the camera, but it's certain projects, that there are just different emotions that go into. And you had a post recently that resonated with me so much about still getting those nerves, before a project. And I was like, I
Mm-hmm.
bet there are so many of us that feel that way, but yet maybe we feel that we're the only ones, or we feel like we have to have it all put together. If we're feeling nerves, maybe we're not meant to do this. And that's not the case at all. So I really loved that post that you made. And
Thank
tell
you.
me a little bit about your experience with that.
Well, first of all, thanks for the question. Because you're right. I think a lot of artists and just people in general are dealing with these. Uh, I don't even want to call them challenges because they're really gifts and blessings. When I was experiencing debilitating anxiety and couldn't leave my house and all that, and I don't share this story often because in my time when that happened in my 20s, there was so much of a stigma attached to it. There was this idea of you know something being wrong with you, or you're feeling imperfect or messed up, or there's something to be fixed. And now, many years later, I haven't I went through a period and then I haven't felt a panic attack in decades, thankfully. I was blessed to meet some really brilliant people. outside of the traditional conventional medical field. Um, I went everywhere. I went to my local church and the priest said, "Are you on drugs?" It's like that go-to default. And my doctor said, I don't know what to do. Here's some pills. Uh, so I tried that for a minute and realized how highly addictive they are. And it really just perpetuates the problem. Like, it doesn't really help me understand myself any better. So um now looking back, and that's the thing, when you're in, it's like flying through the clouds. When you're in the clouds, you have a hard time seeing the finish line, or you don't quite understand what's happening in that turbulent period. But when I look back, it's because of that I needed to find my own way that wasn't a 9 to 5 job. um because I had that anxiety, and some days I could do it, some days I couldn't. I was like, wow, how am I gonna hold down a job and pursue my dreams? And I can't even leave my house. So anyways, I learned to kind of embrace it as part of who I am. And then I started meeting a lot of other people that were just like me, and I thought, wow, it's okay to not be okay by society's standards. But yeah, it's just I think through experience and through finding some great mentors, you start to understand that.
Yeah, and we're afraid to talk about it. And it's okay to talk about it. It is okay for me to say out loud that I have anxiety or that I get nervous or anxious at various times for various reasons. And I love that was part of what you said, was that it's part of, being human. And
Sure is.
it's very natural, and that is an okay thing, and it does not, we should not have a stigma about it. We should not have this negative feeling about it, but we can embrace that, and we can work through it and find ways to kind of push us forward, propel us forward in what we're doing.
It really is the fuel that drives a lot of what I do. I can only speak for myself, but one thing I didn't do, and this, I give credit to some brilliant people that I met along the way, is I never wore it as a badge of honor or as a label. I never wanted, you know, feeling anxious to define me. I know that a lot of people now are throwing around, these popular terms, and it's the first thing that comes out of their mouth. It's like, I have this and I have that. And it's, for me, it wasn't a way of getting significance at all. It's more a way of kind of processing and feeling my way through the world. And it's like Scorsese said, the hardest part of making a film, for example, is getting out of the car. It's like, and I met Al Pacino twice, and it was the same thing. He said, if you're not nervous, then you shouldn't be doing the project. Like, there's something wrong. Like, the fact that you're anxious every time you get up on stage is like part of the, oh my gosh, this is important work that I'm doing.
Yeah. And so I'm glad that you said that, because it's the opposite of how we feel that, or for some of us, I mean, I'm not going to speak for everybody, but I think there's kind of that sense of, if I'm feeling anxiety, maybe I shouldn't be doing this. Maybe it means I'm not good at this. Maybe this is not what I'm supposed to be doing. But the exact
Mm,
opposite, we should be feeling some of those nerves. If we're passionate about it, if we're human, that's going to show up. It's going to be part of the experience, and not to let that shut us down. And I know there's been times where, I had to go out on stage and announce before a show and give an
mhm.
introduction. And I mean, I'm shaking, I am physically, I can feel my hands shaking. And then I start to feel a little discouraged about that. Like, oh man, this is not okay, but it is. And it's that inner dialogue that we sometimes have, or we maybe even psych ourselves out.
Mhm. Yeah, for years I sort of faked it. So people that claim to know me well, think I'm extroverted. So they'll see me at a party, and I know how to turn it on. And I put the mask on and I do my thing, and I'm very comfortable socializing and being in those environments. But inside, getting to the event or getting to the party, it's like where I'm dreading it. It's like, oh, why am I going to this? Why am I doing this? But it's like that old cliche, on the other side of fear is where the magic is. It's like, that's where the elation is. It's like the more the higher levels of fear, the higher the reward, or the magic that you experience. And at least that's what I found. And the more you face your fear and do it anyway, the more fulfilling your life becomes. Because it's easy to become a prisoner of your own mind, conscious mind.
Yeah. Yeah. And then the fear of what other people will think of us. And we that comes up a lot on the show is I think a lot of times we're afraid to talk about things or, some of our inner dialogue is really mixed up in how others will perceive us.
Hmm.
And that holds us back so much. And I mean, I'm so guilty of that too. So it's definitely a daily struggle. And I think when we have conversations like this and when we all come together as a community artistically, we creators and anyone, we come together and have conversations and support each other and encourage each other through all of these difficulties, we can start to see that, okay, I'm not alone. Other people are going through this. It's okay. We can use each other's examples to see how we're getting through it. And it makes it easier instead of trying to just box it up and not, address it at all.
It's true. Yeah, it's through conversation. It's like anything. It's like relationships. It's like work. All the different things. When people come together, they can share stories, and you realize that, wow, there's so many other people experiencing this. And I think the pandemic certainly helped accelerate and amplify some of the things that were already going on. And now you have people in high profile positions saying, I'm not okay right now. And I'm going to just take a timeout, and that's okay.
Yeah.
That's part of my journey, without judgment. And it's like Dr. Wayne Dyer says, other people's opinion of you is none of your business. I think when we can get over ourselves and realize that we're all energy and we're all part of this universal thing, and we're hurling through space right now, and we're just little dots, and we're here for a short time, and it's like, why did God or the creator put us here? Like, what is that thing that we're here to do? And when you make it about service versus ego, then I feel that a lot of that confusion, especially for sensitive people, the artists that are intuitive, there's a confusion that sets in. It's like, because you buy into all the material trappings and success and status and all that stuff, but it all goes away when you say, who am I serving today? Am I able to help one person? Am I making an impact? you know have I made somebody's day better? I
Absolutely.
think those are the kind of things that help.
Yeah, definitely. And that's such a great focus. And that also helps to build community and relationships and strengthen relationships, which is so important. I have to read this quote that you had because which goes along with what you just said. And it just so resonated with me. Creativity is not always fun, glamorous, or convenient. It's a vocation and should be connected to a mission that is bigger than yourself.
Did I say that?
You did. Well, yeah. That's
Came from somewhere.
on it. Yeah. But it's you posted it. So it's out there. It was the day that I read that, something that I needed to read. It was something that I needed to see in that moment. And it
Well, that
helped
means a lot.
that day so much. And since then, because it really is, it's not always easy. We look at our art as it's something that, oh, well, this is what I do. This is what I was born to do or meant to do. That doesn't mean it's going to be always easy or fun or glamorous. And there is a bigger picture. And if we could all look at our art that way, and some days that art is not going to be fun, it's not going to be good. I have sat and agonized while writing over the same sentence for 30 minutes and then just gotten frustrated and had to walk away, because I could not craft that sentence just right, in that moment. And, but yeah, there is a bigger picture there. And there's so many people that we can impact. And I love one of the most beautiful things I heard was about art, and it being a form of communication. It's that I
Absolutely.
am taking a piece of myself, I am putting it in a tangible form, and then I'm giving it to other people. And such a beautiful way to communicate.
It is. It's definitely a way of connecting. And one thing that drew me to this industry so much is that wherever I traveled around the world, even if we didn't speak the same language, there was a universal truth that connected us all. And we, and that, and I think art helps people feel things viscerally.
Yeah.
It goes beyond the conscious mind. And, when I did the film The Cuban, I learned, scientifically how music affects us and affects the brain, and it's able to even bypass and overcome debilitating diseases like Alzheimer's. It's like, wow, what is going on? There's some magical, incredible quality to music that affects us so profoundly.
It's powerful. And that's, yeah, I want to talk to you about the Cuban because, man, I had a hard time holding it together watching that film. Beautiful,
Thank you.
beautifully done. The power of music and human connection were two things that I took away from that film that stuck with me for days after. It is so true, the power that music has, but people coming together and connecting, really connecting with each other. And I love, what a beautiful story. And so just tell me, for those who haven't watched The Cuban yet, everyone needs to go watch The Cuban. You need to see this film, but tell me a little bit about the story and what inspired you to direct this film.
The Cuban essentially is about a young Afghan Canadian nurse who works in a facility and befriends this elderly gentleman who's enigmatic. She doesn't know anything about him, and they start to connect. And as time goes on, she realizes, even though he's dealing with Alzheimer's and a bunch of other medical conditions, but through the power of music, she realizes that he was a one-time famous Cuban musician, and so their interaction helps bring him back to life. But in turn, it also inspires her to fulfill her life purpose as an artist. So they really get something beautiful from each other, and that's really the message. It's like, sometimes those connections come in unlikely scenarios, you know even if they're so many years apart and generationally disconnected or culturally. It was music that ultimately brought them together, and that core humanity. So that's really the message. And obviously the writer Alessandra had a big hand in crafting that story, and a lot came from her personal experience. For me, it was about my dad passing away suddenly at 71. So for me, it was a way of dealing with that. It was very cathartic and therapeutic for me. Um, and it was really an homage to him and a lot of what he stood for in his life, and the meaning that the sort of the experience that I had losing him so young really taught me how precious life is, and how time is not on our side, and really to start thinking about legacy. And we just don't know, are we here for another day, a year, a decade, or 50 years? Like, there, it's not guaranteed or promised. So really the message for me was live your life to the fullest. And even if in Lou's case, in the movie, Luis's case, even if it's that last hurrah, that last, without giving the story away, that last gig was everything for him,
Oh, it was exciting. And yeah, there, everybody, yeah, I don't want to give anything away. I am very spoiler, but something beautiful in that story was, you know, he was there and it was almost like people, no one was really taking the time to see him, to
Right.
really, interact with him. And she took the time. She actually paid attention and found a way to get through to him. And that's how they connected. And it was just like he was just another person in another room to everyone else. And how often in life do we even know what we're passing by sometimes if we don't stop and pay attention and take the time to make connections and
Right.
to really just interact with the world. I mean, so we're so busy, so, and just so much mundane, we get bogged down, and there's so much beauty in the world for us
Mm.
to impact us, to impact others, and to interact with.
You can learn so much. You know, I use Uber a lot, and especially when I'm traveling, and I always make a point of discovering who the person is, what their story is, even if it's a 10-15 minute encounter. And often they're just relieved that they're able to share. And it's, it's like Oprah said, the most important thing to people is, you know, do I see you? Do I, what is it? I see you, I feel you, I acknowledge you, whatever that thing is. It's so true, and people just want to be acknowledged. And I've learned so much about the world just through Uber drivers that I've met. And you never know who's sitting in that front seat. I've met people that have been in famous rock bands and well-known actors and musicians, artists, physicians. I met like a brilliant top surgeon from Afghanistan who's driving Uber. Like you don't know. And if you're on your phone and scrolling social media, you miss that window, that opportunity. So it really is important to take the time to really get to know someone, regardless of who it is.
It is, yeah, and you're right. You can learn so much. I learned, a dear friend of mine. I co-host with her on another show, and one of the things that she taught me was just saying, "How's your day going?" Whoever it may be, the
Hmm.
cashier, your server at a restaurant, wherever you are, just the person next to you in a waiting room. How's your day going? And it usually takes a lot of people aback, like, "Oh, yeah," and you get this little conversation that you do find out about people, and you do kind of make a little spark that, even if it was just a few seconds or a couple of minutes, there's something there, and there's something positive that has just happened, and then you both took the time to engage with someone you would not have otherwise.
Yeah. And it teaches you as you get older that other people are really mirrors of ourselves, and we're all connected, and we all have a story, and we all generally want the same things fundamentally, like, those basic human needs. But in the case of the story, it's just amazing how in our medical fields, you become a number, and it's almost recyclable. Like it's, you have patient number 237, and then 2 days later they're gone, and then someone else comes in. And so,
Yeah.
and people become dehumanized. They sort of desensitized to the fact that this is a human being, this is somebody's mother, father, brother, sister. So yeah, I usually am pretty observant as a director. That's my job. I'm sort of clocking everything that's going on around me. And so if I'm in a meeting and somebody dismisses the waiter, for example, or the waitress, or just, that tells you a lot about a person. So yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, you have a podcast, Creativity Unleashed, and there's some similarities between what I'm trying to do here and what you're doing. And so I love that. And I love there's a community out there that is really trying to inspire and motivate and encourage creatives in what they're doing. So tell me a little bit about what you do, Creativity Unleashed.
Yeah, I mean, so during the pandemic, and I was in Canada, and we were in complete lockdown for long extended periods of time. So, this goes back to our earlier point about how important human connections are. And they've actually linked it to longevity. Like it's the people that have the most social human connections. If you study the blue zones, Sardinia, in Italy being one of them, one of the top things is socialization. um, so during the pandemic, we were struggling to connect, and then this app Clubhouse started, and we started plugging into our tribes and our communities. And around the same, like, I've been sort of studying human psychology and personal development for the last 25-30 years as a way of helping myself, frankly. So as a personal interest. And as time went on, I realized that a lot of my professional sports athletes have mental coaches, physical coaches. They have a whole team around them to help them be great. And I couldn't figure out why in our communities, like, artists work in silos, like in isolation. Like directors don't talk to each other because there's that false sense of competition. And So I thought, I'd love to selfishly go out and find, the top performers in the world, not just in entertainment, but in other fields as well, and just unpack kind of what makes them tick. So that's really where it started. It was out of my own curiosity and my own need to try to understand uh, why we do the things we do. Because sometimes I scratch my head and I was just like, I know what to do, but I don't do what I know. It's like, why? Why? So that's kind of where it started.
Yeah. What's the best piece of advice that you've heard on your podcast?
Oh man, so many things. Generally, the importance of mindset and the fact that 95% of what we do is all being driven and dictated by our subconscious mind and our programming. So only 5% of what we do is conscious. So that's pretty scary and pretty daunting. So,
Yes.
and once you have that information, my question was, okay, now what? So now that, like, I'm basically on autopilot most of the day, doing things just kind of based on past experiences in programming. How do you change that? And what I learned is it's all through repetition and through routines. So whether it's affirmations, working out, meditation, I started a year and a half ago doing qigong, just kind of learning how to harness and use my own energy. And so it's things like that and being consistent,
Oh, yeah.
because it's an elastic band. It's like you stretch it and it's like life's great, and then all of a sudden you miss 2 3 days and it snaps back to, you snap back to old patterns. So that, I think, was the best advice that I got.
Why is consistency so hard? I'm trying to answer the
Yeah.
question for myself. It is definitely, I think, probably harder for some, people more than others, but it's just that thing you've got to really stay on top of it. It's sometimes you have those moments, you're like, oh man, I have slacked off this week and whatever it is, it's hard.
It's I can feel that you have perfectionist tendencies and qualities, and I do as well, so that's why I recognize it. And the
Type
key is,
A.
yeah, exactly. The key is to take imperfect action consistently. So
Hmm.
so when I can't work out for whatever half hour, 45 minutes, I force myself to do 5 minutes. And one of my mentors, Jim Cathcart, who wrote The Acorn Principle, he said he used to put his running shoes by the door. And even if he didn't have time, he was late for the airport, he'd just put the darn shoes on and walk to the curb and walk back, just so in his mind, he can feel that sense of accomplishment, because you don't want to let yourself down, So
Right.
it's taking imperfect action consistently forever. Like, you just commit to, my body is my temple. It's like one of the most important things. My spiritual life is important. It's like that life wheel, right? You check in on all those areas of your life, and whatever is sort of, lagging behind, that's what you give attention to.
Absolutely. And that actually came up a little bit of that on the episode that has come out on Coffee and Words this week with Wes and Jess Thompson. And we talked a little bit about, sometimes we feel like we have to get it all done, or if we only have 5 minutes, well, I'm not going to be able to accomplish that much. So I'll put it off till tomorrow. And
Hmm.
that is the point of, it doesn't matter if it's 5 seconds, 10 minutes, do a little bit, because you're doing something and then that's a motivator to continue to push you forward. And then you feel like, hey, I sat down and wrote for 5 minutes. Maybe I only got a paragraph in, but that's a paragraph I did not have prior.
That's
Makes my
right.
editor happy when she gets things in a timely fashion. So, but yeah, but yeah, it is. And everybody's different, but yeah, I don't know if it's a type A thing or not, but I know for me, there is always kind of that mindset of, well, if I don't have a big block of time to fit the whole thing in or half of the thing in,
Hmm.
I'll do it tomorrow. I'll do it next week, instead of taking the 5 minutes to put the shoes on and walk to the end of the driveway. That's a great analogy.
And then you can multitask. I know that people aren't big fans of that, and we shouldn't ever strive to be multitaskers, because we can only really be great at one thing at a time as humans. But I find that, and I give this advice to young filmmakers too, is be a director all day long. When you're doing your laundry, when you're, on your way commuting to the city, you're in the car, you're on the train, it's in those moments that creativity bubbles up. And so it's not really a quantifiable time thing. And I feel like as a writer, it's not really about quantity, it's about quality. It's like you come up with that paragraph in the shower that's just like, wow, this is going to be the thing that moves the needle or the game changer.
Yeah. And that's, that we go back to human connection and time and spending time with people. It is really about the quality in anything that we do in life. We're trying to fit so much in. We have such fast paced lives and a fast paced world, and we want to cram everything in. We want to check all the boxes that we got all the things done. But that quality, those quality moments are what count, what really make the difference.
Yeah, and being present and intentional. I think about that whenever I've been most fulfilled and successful, I've been all in on that thing. When I did my first film, Looking for Angelina, years ago, that was my life, morning, noon, and night. And that's all I could think about. That's like it was a complete obsession. And it wasn't like I was doing that and trying to perfect being a golfer or what, it was sort of that intense focus. And I think with friendships and relationships, it's the same. It's giving the other person the presence, the time, the focus and attention.
Yeah.
That now we're constantly being pulled away with these devices. And so I try not to have my phone when I meet somebody. It's either in my pocket or in my bag, because when you put it on the table, it's like it's signaling that there's something more important than you going on here, so I better have my phone. It's like it's ridiculous. And what I learned in LA, and in this kind of high pressure environment, when every subject line is urgent, it's like nobody's gonna die. Like, you know what I mean? Nothing is that urgent. And even if it is, I'm not a doctor or cardiologist or whatever. It's like everything can wait. So that was a hard lesson, because I got to the point where my phone was in my shower next to the bed, like constantly. And yeah, now it's all good.
And
If your
those things that
phone's
we think are emergencies may not really be emergencies.
no,
I had
no,
one
but like, yeah, it's
I had my cam link was not in my bag. And I was like, I have an event to do, a live event after this. And I was like, I can't do anything. I don't have my cam link. Could have used my internal camera. That's okay. So those moments
yeah,
where we're like, oh no, it's yeah, it's okay. And be okay. We're adaptable. We should be
for sure.
adaptable. So
For sure. And yeah, I think we just take life too seriously, but it's there underneath it all, that neurotic kind of obsessive behavior that we've been programmed by these devices and technology and apps. And
yeah.
it's really all vying for our attention. And the more attention we can give Netflix or Facebook, the more money they generate. And they know that. So it's up to us to be the commanders of our own ship. Like, we're the ones deciding how many hours we want to spend on social media.
Yeah, that's so true. I accidentally left my phone in my vehicle last night when I took my 10-year-old out to dinner. And it was the most calming, most relaxing dinner, because I didn't even have, because I knew I was like, oh, I left it in the vehicle. Couldn't have looked and seen if anybody needed me in the first place. And nothing was pressing. So yeah, it's calming. You just put it in a drawer, stick it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's very calming. Well, what current projects do you have? Anything that's upcoming that we should know about?
Yeah, so we just optioned the life rights to a New York Times bestselling author, and we're developing that into a movie. The announcement's going to be made in the next 2-3 weeks, so I can't say much more than that. But and then we're developing a TV series that's super exciting with a strong female protagonist. There's a movie in Italy that is really deeply personal that I've been putting off, because it goes back to our earlier point that when something really scares you, that's what you should be doing. So it's one of those projects. And then I want to revisit animation again. So we're developing a family animated movie and series. So I
Oh,
got a few things happening, and and of course, as a director, I'm always being pitched projects. So it's just, you just never know what when the gods of cinema say, okay, it's time, then you go. So
yeah. And I love that. We'll leave it with that quote that when it really scares you, it's something that you should be doing. I want all of us to think about that as we go into the weekend and next week and all of those things. Well, where can we find you? What are your socials? Where can people hunt you down and stalk you?
yeah, absolutely. I'm on all of them except TikTok. I refused. I don't want to be dancing
Same.
on
Thank you.
TikTok or whatever. It's I
Right.
just
And
I
that's
don't
what,
want to be manipulated, man. Not to that point. But yeah, no, it's Sergio Navarretta on Instagram, Sergio Director on Twitter, and then Sergio Navarretta on Facebook. And then my website is sergionavarrettadirector.com, and it's two R's, two T's. People always miss one or the others.
double consonants all around. There we go.
Yeah, exactly.
Thank you so much for coming on the show and chatting with me.
Thank you. Thank you, Sarah. Thanks for inspiring me. And it's good to see people out there doing it. And, I'm your new biggest fan, and
Oh, well,
keep doing what you're doing, because there's always somebody out there who needs to hear what you're sharing. So really
and
appreciate it.
thank you. Thank you for inspiring me. Thank you for doing what you're doing. And I hope that everyone goes and follows you.
Thank
And
you.
we will chat again soon.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. Thanks for your time.